In my last video, I showcased some glitches in the long-time classic game, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. However, I was only able to show a small portion of the glitches I wanted to. In fact, there are so many glitches in this game I want to show that I will most definitely make a few more videos about them in the future. Before I start though, I should mention that I performed all of these glitches on the Collector's Edition version of the game on GameCube, but everything covered in this video should work on every version of the game. So, without further ado, let's take another look at some glitches in The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. To start off, I'm going to revisit a glitch I showed in my last video called bomb hovering. There, I only showed one method of doing this where you need to use the hover boots to shorten Link's backflip distance to pull it off successfully. However, there is another way to do this glitch that is far more accessible early on. Like before, you start off by getting ISG and then go to a ledge and face away from it. Now what you want to do is target and pull out a projectile weapon like the bow or slingshot. Draw your weapon and aim as high as you can, then backflip and release the shot mid-backflip, then pull out a bomb chew and shield drop it all in quick succession. For some reason, this shortens the backflip distance just enough so that you can shield the bomb chew's explosion in time. Repeat these steps to continue the hover. To my knowledge, this method is the only way to hover as young Link, so learning this method can be pretty useful. It may have sounded like a lot from how I described it, but it's actually a lot easier than it sounds. After doing it once, it becomes pretty easy to do consistently. This is a bit of a side note, but if you're familiar with Majora's Mask glitches, then you probably know that bomb hovering works in that game as well, but it's way easier there. There are two main reasons for this. One is that in Majora's Mask, you can sort of control how far your backflip goes, whereas in Ocarina of Time you cannot. The other reason lies in the way explosion hitboxes differ between the two games. In Ocarina of Time, the hitbox starts off small and gets bigger to match the animation, but in Majora's Mask, the hitbox is always at full size. This makes it so that in Majora's Mask, even if you do a full-length backflip, the explosion will still reach you before you're out of range. That was a bit of a tangent, but I wanted to bring it up because I thought it was an interesting difference between the two games. Anyway, back to Ocarina of Time glitches. Since I was just talking about bomb hovering, here's a way to use it to get Epona Early. Go to Lon Lon Ranch and then get ISG off of Ingo here. Then go to the shortest part of this fence and then perform a bomb ladder. Do just one more backflip and then you should reach the loading zone on the other side of the fence. Once on the other side, the cutscene where you get Epona plays out just as if you got her normally, and you'll be able to use her at your leisure. Just keep in mind that if you haven't gotten Epona's song yet, you won't be able to summon her whenever you want, so be sure to keep track of where you left her. In my last video, I talked about the walking while talking glitch where you can move around when a text box is still active. However, what I didn't mention is that while I was getting footage of that, I encountered two other noteworthy oddities. The first one was that when I performed the glitch using Navi, she got stuck in place even when I cancelled the glitch. She was just kinda floating there in the dark. I managed to get her unstuck when I opened and closed another text box, so there's that. The other oddity was that when I was messing around with the glitch, I somehow closed the text box but still kept the glitch active. When I tried reading the now broken sign, no text box appeared and I got softlocked. Kinda weird, and I'm not totally sure why this happened, but it might have something to do with the fact that I closed the text box in the middle of a spin attack or something. But like I said, I'm not totally sure, but I just wanted to throw these out here because they're technically glitches, so yeah. Anyway, for this next glitch, go to Gerudo Valley with Epona, and then aim for about the corner of this tent. If approached at the right angle and speed, you should be able to go inside of it. Once inside, warp to Lake Hylia, and when you arrive, Link will be totally invisible. You can walk around like this, which is pretty neat, I suppose. One thing to note, however, is that you can no longer take damage from enemies, and in turn, you can't damage the enemies either. In fact, you can't even cut the grass with your sword anymore. The only way to cut the grass now is to pick it up and throw it, and even that is really weird. The grass seems to stay in place despite the fact that you're clearly picking it up. I don't know, it's all really weird. Another really weird thing is that when you use the bow or hookshot, it seems to teleport you to right underneath the warp point when aiming, and then back again when you're done aiming. If you shoot arrows, however, you can see that they seem to originate from where you were standing and not from where you're looking. So I guess this means that the camera is the one teleporting and not you. Either way though, this is still really weird. To return back to normalcy and undo the glitch, just enter a loading zone. I should mention that this glitch only works when you warp to Lake Hylia, and this is because Epona needs to be with you when you warp. However, she can only appear in certain areas where the game allows her to be. This is actually why you're not riding Epona when you're inside the tent. One thing to note is that if you warp to an area where Epona can't appear, but then walk to an area where she can appear, you'll enter that area riding her. This can be a bit problematic if you warp to the graveyard and then go to Hyrule Field through Kakariko Village. You'll enter Hyrule Field while riding Epona, but the game puts you on the stairs, and Epona can't move on stairs, so she's effectively stuck. To get her unstuck, simply play Epona's song somewhere else and she'll teleport near your position. There was a lot to talk about with that last one, but this one will be quick, I promise. Enter a body of water and then face towards shore. Now Z target and swim backwards for a bit, and then pause and equip the iron boots. When you unpause, immediately start swimming towards land while still holding Z to face forward. Once on land, you can unequip the iron boots and let go of Z, and that's it! You're now swimming on land. There's nothing useful you can do with this, but it's a very silly looking glitch that's kinda fun to mess around with. You can move around and dive, but all that does is make you swim slower. The state is actually very fragile, as going down a somewhat steep slope, entering a loading zone, or basically doing anything that's not just swimming around on relatively flat ground will undo the glitch. Like I said, it's totally useless, but it's really easy to do, so there's that. Here's another super easy glitch, but this one actually does have some uses. For this, you're gonna want to have a fish or a bug in a bottle and another non-bottle item that you can hold in your hand, like the sword or bow or hookshot or something like that. Drop the fish or bug and then catch it again so that the bottle is in your hand. Next, do a backflip, and while in midair, press the button the bottle is set to, and then the button that the other item is set to right after. When Link lands on the ground again, he should be playing the item like an ocarina. This is called Ocarina Items, and it lets you use certain items as a fully functional ocarina. This is useful for runs of the game that skip getting the ocarina, but outside of that, you can also do this to play the ocarina when you're not supposed to, for instance during a boss fight. Like I mentioned though, this only works with certain items you can hold in your hand. Here's a list of all the items that work for Ocarina Items. If you do these steps with a different item outside of this list, you'll end up permanently replacing it with a bottle, and if you save afterwards, there's no getting the item back, so be careful. On the other hand, if you actually want to replace your items with bottles, there's a way to do that even with the items that work for Ocarina Items. Drop a fish or a bug, and then try to catch it again, but pause in the middle of the animation where Link is swiping the bottle. Swap out the bottle you just used for another item, and then unpause. When you catch the fish or bug, it'll overwrite the previous item with a bottle. This works for every C item, but I couldn't seem to get it to work for the fire, ice, and light arrows, although I'm certain there's a way to replace even those if you want to have a full inventory of bottles. One interesting thing about the fire, ice, and light arrows though is that you don't actually need a bow to use them. If you equip them, Link will just randomly have a bow that he can use, so that's kinda neat I suppose. If you're going to use this glitch to get more bottles, I would recommend replacing the claim check, mask, and magic beans once you're done with them because they're completely useless afterwards. If you still want more space, then I suppose you could also replace the Deku Nuts and Ocarina, as Deku Nuts are never required by the game, and you can use Ocarina items if you need to use an Ocarina. I personally wouldn't recommend going any further with this, because the game basically becomes unplayable without certain items, but it's really up to you, so just use this at your own discretion. Anyway, you wouldn't really need more than the 4 bottles the game gives you anyway, so there's just more reason not to do this. I almost forgot to mention this earlier when I was talking about Ocarina Items, but there I said that you should use a non-bottle item to perform the glitch. The reason for this is that if you use an empty bottle, you'll instead perform a different glitch. When you try to do Ocarina Items with an empty bottle, Link will instead drink something. This something has the same effect as milk, so this actually makes this glitch very useful, as milk recovers 5 hearts per drink, so effectively you can give yourself infinite health recoveries. I believe the name given to this glitch by the community is something along the lines of infinite milk, but in my opinion it always looked like Link was just drinking the fish or bugs that were used, so I call it drink a fish or drink a bug. You can call it what you want, of course, but I just find the idea of Link drinking a fish and bugs to be kind of funny. Another thing about the Ocarina Items glitch that I almost completely forgot to mention is that alongside using a fish or bugs, you can also use a fairy or blue fire. And yes, you can also use the drink glitch to drink the fairy or blue fire. The reason I suggested using a fish or bug, however, is that when you release the fish or bug, you can still catch them again, whereas when you release the fairy or blue fire, you cannot. This makes it so that the only places you can do these glitches with the fairy or the blue fire are where they can naturally be found, like in fairy fountains for the fairy's case, or the ice cavern for the blue fire's case. The fish and bugs, on the other hand, can be used just about anywhere, so this makes them the far more convenient option. Unfortunately, that's about all the time I have for this video, so I'll leave it at that for now. However, there are still a lot more glitches that I'd like to show you, so I'll make about 2 or maybe 3 more videos in the future. I think the glitches I'll be showing will be pretty interesting, so check those out if you're interested. For now, however, thank you guys very much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.